Hello friends, welcome back. This is Jenny from Polly's Paper Studio. Thank you for joining me today. I've got the June 4-sheet challenge all set for you guys. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I've been taking the calendar collection from Authentique paper and challenging myself to create projects using only those 4 sheets and some additional card stock. In my previous 4-sheet card challenge, that was back in October, I made 10 A2 size cards. They were sweet and simple, not too much embellishing, and they were absolutely perfect. I wanted it to give another look at cards with this collection and put in a little bit more of my embellishments and the details that I like to add. So I didn't get 10, I did get 7, and so they are all full size except 2 smaller ones, and I put in all of my favorite layering elements. So this is June. It has a beautiful plaid, of course. There is a floral. This one has bees, and it's all in really beautiful muted tones of yellow and blue. And so this is really perfect for summer if you're like me. You've been creating a lot of patriotic projects. So red, white, and blue, and stars and shiny things. And this is really summer themed. It has the florals and all that, but it isn't patriotic. So this is a great addition to your summer project creations. So there are many vintage images on this sheet as well. You're covered for weddings and Father's Day and all occasions, and just nature inspired ones. And I always like that on the B side there are alternate pattern papers, so you're gonna have a lot of different choices to mix and match. Here's this cut apart sheet. This is the same for every month. She's got a variety of tags and sentiments and stamps, and then a calendar if you like to use this for a planner. That works out really well. So for some of these I did use the cut aparts on this side, and then I utilized the patterns on the back as well to stretch that pattern paper out as far as I could. And then every month you do get a solid, and this one is that I think it's kind of cornflower. That's what I'm going to call it. If you think of a better name, you can let me know in the description below. Drop me a comment. But I'm going to go with cornflower, and then also like a vintage maize. So it is very muted and very aged looking because it has a bit of like a texture printed on it, so that works really well. We're gonna make this card today, and it's a little different from my normal card making because I'm using a large embossing folder to create a pattern, a raised pattern rather than a printed pattern, and then I've got a combination of flower arrangements here. Instead of one large one, there are 2, and it creates a beautiful kind of curving arrangement here, and then some fishtail cuts from offcuts from other cards. So that works perfectly to stretch all of these beautiful pattern papers to get all the projects done. So stick with me. We'll make this one together, and then at the end I will show you the other 6 projects that I created for this special post. So let's get work. Starting with a standard size card base, I'm going to begin adding my layers. So my border is going to be created with that blue Hawaii Spectrum cardstock that is also from Authentique paper. For the next section, you see I have taken the solid color from the 4 sheets of the June collection. I ran it through this embossing die, so I just put it in here and ran it through my die cut machine, and that gave it a raised section. So I took a sanding block and just roughed up the edges where it was the raised portion, and that gives me a very fun sort of weathered detail. Next I have a doily, and I've cut off the edge because I want it to be centered closer to this left hand side, so that I don't lose any of that great embossing detail. I'm just going to add that with some double-sided adhesive tape. So now my focal point is going to be offset slightly. I'm going to bring in a fishtail banner shape of that plaid, and it will stretch the entire length of the side of that card there. I lined it right up so that I could take advantage of the border strip that was already there. So the B side of this plaid is the gorgeous floral and bee. That's going to go next. I have the same banner fishtail cut into that, just stacking those up. My first raised section is one of the images from the cut apart sheet, and that's just that little bee with a flower. I put a double matting on that so it has the yellow and the blue incorporate both the colors from the solid sheet, and I pop that up on a spacer so that I can add some dimension. Now I've got a sentiment here that was cut from the cut apart sheet, and it was cut with a fishtail banner with stitch detail. That's a nice little extra detail. I had it already adhered to a different card, but I decided that I liked it on this one better. So I'm going to adhere that now and capture that cut edge underneath the floral. Now it's time to bring in those flowers. Like I mentioned, I cut the larger yellow flower from the mustard seed cardstock and shaped them and finished the centers with those gorgeous stamens. There's a little bit of die cut foliage there and some loopy twine bows. I've got one for each side, so this is sort of a split arrangement. Before I adhere that though, I do want to add this beautiful bee charm, and it's just going to rest right here. I'll hold it in place where I want it to fall and then use a little bit of hot glue to attach that, and I'll use the flowers to cover the cut end of that string. For the second arrangement, I do want to have that placed slightly on top of the journal card and then hanging off the side, creating a nice curve to the arrangement. Okay, that is all for this card. Now, as I mentioned before, I was able to get 7 projects this month from the calendar collection, so I'll just show you those very quickly. This one has a die cut focal image from one of the journal cards, and on this one I want to take note that on the B side of all of the vintage images there is additional paper patterns, so you can have even more to mix and match. It definitely gives you a lot of options. Here's a gorgeous shaker card, and I was able to use that beautiful plaid as a frame, and the journal card behind is acting as a focal image where all the sequins are, and then a couple of these little stamps stacked here and die cut sentiments. This one is a 6x6 card, and I was able to use the B side again for this to get that really fun polka dot. There is a large sentiment here and a large vintage image, so I arranged them and kind of stack them up so that I didn't lose any of that gorgeous image on that larger journal cut apart. I've also included a small tag here and put a little bit of twine, so that's giving it some extra texture, and then a couple of vintage buttons finishes this card off. Here's one with birds, and the other ones were all pretty much bees, but this one has the sweet little mama bird feeding her babies. I put that on a pretty white doily. So this collection has beautiful muted tones of blue and yellow, and I wanted to freshen that up, brighten up the overall look. So I put that on that white doily, and that really helps the focal image to pop off that background page. Here again, I've used the B side to cut a couple of fishtail banners, and this is a good way to fill in some of that negative space. I also put a large floral arrangement on the top. This particular image had some writing, and I wanted to make sure that I covered that so that this is more of a all occasion greeting card. And so those are all my full-size cards. I did take a minute to create a couple of the smaller A2 size cards. Not quite clean and simple, but they are a little bit simpler than the huge flower arrangements that I really normally like to put on cards, but sometimes you just need something that is smaller and even a little bit more mailable. Maybe not this one because it has that shape on the sentiment tag, but I was able to utilize the die cut from the shaker card as a background on this. So make sure you keep an eye on the offcuts while you're working, because it may be just what you need for the next card. And then this one is perfectly layered with one of the journal cards, a image from the cut apart sheet, a very simple tied bow and a charm, and then another one of those tags. So that is 7 projects all together with that calendar collection for June. So if you are interested in checking out that collection, I will drop a link in the description below, and you can also find links for all our social media sites there. We're on Facebook, Instagram, our blog, and our Etsy shop. If you enjoyed this project, make sure you give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment. If you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you will be notified every time we upload a new project. As always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye.